Millionaire hailed a taxi at 3 a.m. You won't believe who's behind the wheel. The clock struck 3 in the morning, and the streets of Manhattan were slick with rain, glistening under the neon haze of streetlights. A figure appeared, shrouded in a long coat, as he braved the damp air. It was Russell Drayton, the billionaire whose name was whispered in both admiration and contempt. Under his designer sunglasses, he scanned the empty street like a hawk catching sight of prey. He needed a ride fast. Tonight's mood was off, and the tension crackled around him like electric air before a storm. Just then, out of the darkness, a taxi screeched to a halt. The driver, a grizzled old man with unkempt hair and a tired face marked by years of night driving, seemed just as out of place as the millionaire in his sleek suit. As Russell climbed into the back, the smell of leather and something faintly metallic filled the air. Something felt wrong. He could see the driver's eyes flickering nervously in the rearview mirror, casting quick glances like a bird on the run. Where to? The driver grunted, as if each word was a weight pressing him down. Russell hesitated, the lump in his throat hardening. Just away from here, he muttered, trying to shake off the unease creeping up his spine. The city lights blurred behind them, and an unsettling silence settled in. As they drove deeper into the unknown corners of New York, things began to unravel. Russell noticed something odd about the driver. Why was he gripping the steering wheel like it was a lifeline? And why did his fingers twitch? Beneath the surface of the quiet, something sinister bubbled. The neon glow outside twisted, shadows danced against the car windows, and the sound of distant sirens reverberated in the air. Was it just the rain, or was business desperate enough that he needed to take this route? The weight of unknown passengers in the night pressed on Russell's chest, suffocating him. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The taxi veered sharply, and Russell shot forward, shock flooding his veins. He could feel the driver's tension in the air, thick and palpable. A quick flick of the wrist from the driver, and Russell noticed a strange tattoo. A symbol that looked like it belonged to an underground world he had only heard stories about. Beneath his composed exterior, dread began to unfurl within him. This was more than a simple ride home. It was a journey into the heart of darkness, and he was sitting right in the middle of it. What secrets did this driver harbor? Why did the night seem to thrum with danger? As the car weaved through shadows, Russell braced himself. He had a sinking feeling that this taxi ride wouldn't end where he intended. The cab plunged into a tunnel of darkness, the headlights barely slicing through the thick veil of shadows. Russell's pulse raced, the rhythmic thump echoing in his ears as he felt the ever-tightening grip of fear wash over him. The driver, his knuckles nearly white, finally broke the silence. "Don't look back," he whispered, his voice rough like gravel. "Trouble's following us." Trouble? Russell's heart thudded. What kind of trouble? His mind raced, connecting dots he didn't quite understand. Despite the fear tightening his throat, he forced himself to lean forward, trying to catch a glimpse of the driver's reflection in the rearview mirror. Let's just say not everyone around here has the same plans for you as you do. The driver's eyes darted to a shadow cast by a streetlight before refocusing on the road ahead. "I'm just doing my job." Russell's heart sank. "Your job? What is that supposed to mean? Just take me home, old man." Disbelief mixed with anger, but his nerves amplified the jagged notes of panic. The old man began to chuckle, low and dangerous. "You don't truly understand what is happening, do you? Out here in the dead of night, everything is on the line. You think you can be a star in the daytime and nobody comes to collect your dues at night?" The words hit Russell harder than he expected. He was no stranger to the high-stakes game of wealth and power, but this felt different. This felt personal. "Who sent you?" he demanded. A moment of silence enveloped them, filled only with the sound of the tires on wet pavement. "Let's just say friends of mine." The driver's voice twisted with malice. A fleeting glance from him met Russell's gaze through the mirror, and for a moment, The world blurred into a dizzying swirl of lights and shadows. "You have something they want," he added, his gaze seizing with a glint of awareness. Russell opened his mouth to respond, but what could he say? He had everything but the answers. As they turned onto a dimly lit street, the landscape shifted. Abandoned warehouses loomed like giants in the fog. Suddenly, the driver slammed on the brakes, the screech of rubber against asphalt jolting Russell back. "Out!" he barked, an edge of urgency slicing through the tension. "What? No, get out." The driver's voice was suddenly panicked, like a warning siren. In the rearview mirror, Russell caught sight of figures emerging from the shadows, dark shapes moving with a purpose. "Please, just take me home." His pleas felt painfully futile. Desperation clawed at him as he hesitated, but the sight of those figures in the distance, closing in on them, ignited a spark of survival instinct deep within. With a shaking hand, he pulled the door open and stumbled out, rain cascading down, chilling him to the bone. He didn't have a plan, and he didn't know where to run. Panic made him feel cornered. "Go!" the driver shouted, throwing the taxi into gear. The vehicle lurched away, leaving Russell exposed to the encroaching darkness. Alone, he turned to face the looming figures that glided closer. "Who wants me?" Russell muttered to himself, heart hammering against his ribs. But an all-too-familiar feeling gnawed at him. Wasn't he just an unlucky passenger? Maybe this was the price for living a life of luxury. Before he could process this, the shadows coalesced, revealing faces marked by intent. The same symbol from the driver's tattoo glimmered in their glances. What had he failed to see? As Russell staggered back against the chill of an alleyway wall, his mind raced. This wasn't just a ride anymore. He was trapped in a web of secrets unraveling fast. What had he gotten himself into? The night air hung thick with tension as Russell pressed his back against the damp wall. It felt cold against his skin, but the chill he felt came from deep within him. The figures moved closer, their steps a twisted echo of his spiraled thoughts. He had no idea who they were, but their eyes were fixated on him like vultures circling prey. "Russell Raines," one of them called out, their voice commanding yet twisted with an unnerving glee. "You've been a tough man to find." Just hearing his name sent a jolt through him. How did they know him? The wealth that had afforded him so much had also raised a bucket of enemies he never knew existed. He wasn't prepared for this sudden unveiling of shadows now bolstering his reality. Swallowing hard, he scanned his surroundings, looking for any escape. A fire escape rusted over the alley's height held a sliver of hope, just enough to ignite a flicker of survival instinct. But as he contemplated the climb, their menacing laughter sent ripples of fear crawling up his spine. "Run if you like, but there's nowhere to go," another voice sneered. "You're out of your league here and we're just the messengers." Messengers? With each word, they tightened the noose around his chest. What did they want? His every instinct screamed at him to bolt, yet fear made his legs feel like lead. He had to accede. In a blaze of desperation, Russell broke into a sprint, heart racing faster than his feet. The alley twisted and turned, dark and suffocating, the rain hammering against him like a relentless drum. He could hear their footsteps, voices echoing behind him, growing louder with every desperate breath. "Don't let him get away," one shouted, urgency lacing their tone. Panic erupted in his chest, turning the world into a blurred mess of shadows and distorted noises. He skidded around a corner, his mind racing through possibilities. Each breath tasted like dread, the part of him that had reveled in the thrill of power now cowering in the face of true danger. He recalled the driver's words, "He has something they want." Loosely fitting answers tangled with suspicions about his lifestyle choices slashing through his tightly woven fabric of denial. In a twisted fate he hurtled toward a block of decrepit buildings, each one seemingly a labyrinth of secrets. The thought of hiding in one flickered through him as he approached a door that hung ajar. With a quick push, he slipped inside, praying to whatever gods were listening that it would be cloaked from their eyes inside. The stale air struck him like a punch. He stumbled blindly into the dilapidated space, scanning the shadows that flickered with every refrain of stormy wind. With quickened breaths he crouched behind an old desk littered with debris, the rough edges biting into his palm. Footsteps echoed down the hall outside, heavy and intentional. He could hear them clearly now, their chilling conversations mingling with muffled threats. Panic clawed at his throat. He is here. He has to be. They knew it was just a matter of time before they found him. Was he truly the prey in this sinister game? A heavy thud broke through the tension. Perhaps the door had swung in. Russell held his breath, feeling helplessness clutching at his throat. Suddenly, silence enveloped the room. The kind of silence that tickled at the back of his mind like a warning. Had they moved on? Or were they right there, listening, waiting for him to make a sound? Russell's world narrowed down to the pulsing of his heartbeat, each thump a countdown to whatever fate awaited him. The uncertainty weighed down on him, suffocating. But a whisper cut through his fear. Help has come. Who was it? And was it truly help? A new dread crept in. Who could possibly be here? And would they be friend or foe? The unexpected anticipation twisted inside him like a coiled snake, poised to strike. He had no choice but to take that chance. What awaited him on the other side of this moment could change everything. Russell felt a shiver run down his spine as the whisper echoed in his ears. Help has come. The words hung in the air, tantalizing yet terrifying. Who would dare enter this den of shadows? He crouched lower, heart racing, unsure of what the arrival of this mysterious figure meant for his fate. The door creaked ominously as it swung open, light spilling into the dim room. He blinked against the brightness, squinting at the silhouette that stepped inside. It was a woman, tall and imposing, her features obscured by the shadows. The flicker of lightning outside cast a quick illumination across her face, revealing sharp eyes that sparkled with fierce intelligence. "Russell, we don't have much time," she said, urgency lacing her voice. "They are close. Who are you?" He gasped, struggling to steady his breath, the taste of stale air still heavy in his mouth. "What do you mean they?" "People who want what you have," she replied sharply, scanning the room as if she could see right through the walls. "You're a target now and we need to get you out. Trust me." Trust? That word felt foreign, tinted with the shame of how he turned a blind eye to the rippling impacts of his fortune on others. But deep down, beneath the layers of fear and hesitation, a flicker of hope began to grow. He needed an ally, any ally, before he could act. The distant rumbling of footsteps returned, growing louder, dangerously close. Russell's heart thudded in his chest. "We can't stay here. They'll find us." "Follow me," she commanded, her voice cutting through his panic. She turned and dashed toward a narrow corridor at the back of the room. Without thinking, he leaped up and followed, adrenaline fueling every desperate step. The corridor was dark and narrow, walls lined with battered wooden panels that seemed to whisper remnants of rich lives now lost. As they sped down the passageway, the woman glanced back at him. "Can you keep up? Stop. Just tell me who you are and why you're helping me." He gasped, his lungs burning from exertion. "I'm Ella," she replied curtly. "And we don't have time for questions. Just know that I owe you. You might not remember, but we've crossed paths before. I can help you now. We just need to survive." The ghost of recognition danced at the corners of his memory, but it was eclipsed by the urgency of the moment. He didn't have time to dwell on the past. Forging ahead felt like the only option. "What do you need me to do?" "Stick close to me and be quiet," she instructed, halting at another door that looked as dilapidated as the first. As she nudged it open, a cacophony of footsteps thudded against the ground outside, and they both froze. Ella pressed her finger to her lips, signaling silence as she cautiously stepped outside. Fear churned inside Russell like a storm at sea. They were here. They were coming for him, peering around her. He saw the alley darkened again by shadows that slinked like predators. Ella gestured for him to move quickly. "We're going through the back streets. Trust me." Before he could light a spark of doubt, they burst into the night like phantoms, darting towards the edge of the darkness. His instincts screamed at him, but something deeper held him captive, a mix of desperation and the faint thread of shared fate pulling him forward. Suddenly, a scream pierced through the night, echoing off the buildings like a haunting wail. Russell's gut dropped. "What was that?" "Don't stop. Just keep moving," Ella urged, tugging at his arm. But just as they rounded a corner, a figure emerged from the shadows, blocking their path. It was one of the hunters, face obscured by a hood, an ominous glint of a weapon catching the light. The moment froze. Russell's heart plunged. Was this it? "Run!" Ella shouted, her voice igniting a surge of adrenaline. They worked together to dodge the danger ahead, rushing deeper into the night, but Russell couldn't shake the feeling that the nets were tightening around him. Then came the chilling realization that the more he learned what was happening, the less he understood about the people who were supposed to help him, and, as he sprinted forward into the unknown, he couldn't shake the sense that betrayal was lurking just out of sight. Russell tore down the alley, his legs pumping furiously as he followed Ella, who glanced over her shoulder, urging him forward with frantic gestures. The hunter loomed back there, a shadow among shadows, but they were faster right now. Speed was their ally. The unease coiled around Russell's heart like a vice. They ducked into another side street, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and the faint metallic tang of fear. Ella's presence felt vital, yet her secret agenda weighed on him heavily. "Where are we going?" he gasped, trying to keep pace. "To a safe house," she replied curtly. "Place we can regroup. Can you trust it?" He pressed. "Can we trust each other?" Each question rattled like a bomb in the quiet. A flicker of something annoyance, perhaps, crossed her face as she darted through a broken fence into a small patch of overgrown grass, littered with old bottles and forgotten debris. "Trust has its price, Russell. We'll both find out how much soon enough." Just past the wreckage of an old shack, they stopped. The building stood in near ruins, slumping like a weary giant. Ella leaned against the door, taking quick breaths as her sharp eyes scanned the darkness closing in. "Get inside. Is this really safe?" Russell hesitated, peeking through the cracked window. The outside world felt like a pressure cooker, ready to explode. Only silence watched them. "Do you want them to catch you?" "We're not safe until we're inside," she insisted, pushing the door open and pulling him in as he reluctantly followed her lead. Inside was a different kind of dark, thick, stale, and saturated with the fear of all those who had hidden there before him. Ella flicked on a small flashlight, casting weak beams against the peeling walls. "Wait here," she instructed, slipping out of the light, her form slowly disappearing into the umbra. Russell moved deeper into the abandoned shelter. Each creak of the floorboard sent tremors down his spine. He stood alone, heart pounding, evaluating the shadows that seemed to breathe around him. A tinge of regret washed over him. Not so long ago he'd taken solace in his wealth, his security, and now he was reduced to hiding in dilapidated corners, a hunted prey in a twisted game. The distant sounds of searching footsteps reached his ears. They were closing in. Panic surged, his throat tightened. Would Ella return before it was too late? A little voice clawed at his mind. She may not even be trustworthy. She said she owed him, but for what price? The door creaked suddenly, and Russell jerked his head toward it, breath hitching in his throat. Ella slipped back inside, a sharp look of urgency painting her features. In her hands was a small box, ancient and covered in dust. "We need to know what's in here," she announced, breathless. "Seriously? Now?" He eyed the box warily. What if this was a trap? And what if it's our way out? She opened it without waiting for his response. Inside lay a stack of worn photographs and crumpled papers. The first photograph caught his eye, a black and white image of a lavish party. Strangers laughed and danced, but one face leaped out at him. A man in a sharp suit at the center, face radiant with joy. Russell's blood ran cold. It was his father, the man with all the answers, the man who had vanished from his life. "Is this?" he stammered, reaching for the photo, trembling fingers brushing against the image. "Answers," Ella said softly, "but they come with questions." Before he could ask, the door slammed against the wall, splintering the silence. Shadows poured in as the hunters broke through, weapons drawn. "Now or never," Ella shouted, decisive and fierce. Russell's heart raced. If he didn't act now, everything he fought for would slip away. But what about the truth? He shouted desperately. "We don't have time for truth. We need to fight." They were trapped, but panic cracked like thunder, shocking him out of his fears. He grabbed the box and prepared to stand beside Ella. "Let us see what's worth fighting for." And just like that, with hunters on their heels and darkness swirling, they readied for a battle that would change everything. What was waiting for them on the other side? The hunters burst in, storming the space with an overwhelming presence, and Russell's resolve wavered as he caught sight of the flashlights flickering around him like jagged lightning. The air was thick with tension and the smell of sweat and fear. "Ella!" he shouted, glancing to where she had stood only moments before, but she was already moving, her instincts kicking in. "Over here." she called, motions tight with urgency. She dove behind an overturned table just as bullets shattered the air around them. A rain of splintering wood and drywall. The chaos fueled Russell's adrenaline. He ducked instinctively, heart pounding in his chest like a drum. "What do we do?" he yelled, trying to keep his voice steady. "We fight," Ella shouted back, determination shining in her eyes. "We use what we have." She rifled through the box, her fingers digging and searching, as if the answers might save them. Crouched behind the table, Russell felt the weight of the box in his hands. Inside lay fragments of a past he barely knew. But in that moment, it was also a lifeline, a connection to something greater than fear. He took a breath, willing some calm into the storm. "How do you know what's in there?" "I have my suspicions," she said, not looking up. With a swift motion, she pulled out a crumpled piece of paper and a small, glinting object that caught the light just right. "This could help us." The next moment felt suspended in time as the reality of their predicament bore down on him. The hunters were methodical, biding their time, but Russell could hear the impatience seeping into their voices. "They're just waiting for us to show ourselves," one shouted, frustration lacing his words. "Then let us give them a reason," Ella hissed, the spark igniting in her eyes. She turned to Russell, her every nerve alight with purpose. "We need to create a distraction." "Distract them how?" He looked back at her, panic flaring as another bullet struck the wall just above his head. "Here. Use this." With trembling hands, she thrust the small object into his palm, a flare gun. Russell stared at it, uncertain. "You're kidding me. It's our only shot." Ella insisted sharply. "Set off that flare, and it'll light the place up." They wouldn't he expect it. But he hesitated, imagining the explosion of fire and light in the dimming space. "What about us? No one said survival was safe," she retorted fiercely. The energy crackled between them as if their resolve had become tangible. Taking a deep breath, Russell locked eyes with her. Everything was now or never. He couldn't let fear consume him. He could either cower or he could push back. "'Kay," he said, voice steadier now. "On 3. Wait for my count," she instructed. "I'll cover you." Time stretched out, rhythm and urgency fueling their hearts. They exchanged one last look. A silent pact formed in the chaos. With unyielding resolve, Ella shouted to the hunters. "Hey! Over here!" Russell's pulse raced as they turned momentarily, allowing him to rise and aim the flare gun toward the crowd, heart pounding in his throat. "Now!" Ella yelled. He pulled the trigger. Fire erupted, a blinding flash engulfing the room and the startled hunters. Heat washed over them as Russell felt the air thicken, hot and chaotic. He crouched back behind the table next to Ella, both of them blinking against the sudden brightness and the silhouette of the hunter staggering back. Eyes wide with surprise, the blazing light shrieked like a beast unleashed, and he could hear them clamoring about in confusion, shadows of panic dancing in their faces. "What now?" he asked, adrenaline surging through his veins. "Go. Now!" Ella shouted, rolling to get out from cover. There was a path toward the back door, dim and murky, but a chance nonetheless as they sprinted toward freedom. Each step felt like an echo of their desperate fight against darkness. Would the light of their moment hold as they plunged into the unknown? Russell glanced back once more, catching the edge of the flickering blaze illuminating their escape. But beneath it all lingered the gnawing question: what would they find waiting for them outside? Would the truth set them free? Or would it trap them further in a web spun from secrets and shadows? The back door creaked open, revealing a narrow alley that twisted like a snake into the night. Cold air poured over Russell and Ella as they bolted through, hearts pounding. The flare continued to sizzle in the background, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls, but Russell could feel the chill of the unknown creeping closer. They rounded a corner, breathless, desperation fueling their pace. The distant sounds of shouting hunters rang out behind them, echoing harshly in the stillness. Ella didn't slow down, her eyes fixed ahead, searching for signs of what lay before them. "Where do we go?" Russell gasped, trying to keep up. His shoes scuffed against the hard ground, each step a reminder of their fragility. The night felt alive with danger, swirling around them like a predator waiting to pounce. "Left," Ella commanded, pointing towards a darkened street lined with abandoned buildings that loomed over them like silent giants. Without a second thought they turned. Adrenaline surged as Russell fought to concentrate, his mind racing like the blurs of light before his eyes. As they sprinted down the street, something nagged at the back of Russell's mind, a flicker of memory that couldn't quite solidify. What had Ella said about knowing what was in the box? It felt important, like a thread he needed to pull to unravel the larger picture. "Ella," he called, trying to navigate through the chaos. "What did you mean back there? What else is in that box?" "Not now," she shouted over her shoulder, urgency etched across her features. "We need to focus on getting away first." But the questions twisted like vines in his mind. What had she unearthed that could save them? Or was it something much darker? He couldn't shake the sense of foreboding that wrapped itself around his heart. They ducked into an alley on their right, the walls closing in tighter as they maneuvered through the winding path. Russell's thoughts churned, dread creeping over him. "Ella, what if they find us?" She turned, resolved but breathing heavily. "Then we keep running. We don't stop no matter what." Just as she spoke, a loud crash echoed behind them, followed by the unmistakable sound of heavy boots pounding against the pavement. The hunters were close. Chapter 2. Desperate escape had just begun. Russell's heart sank. They weren't just mining for survival anymore, they were engulfed in a disaster spiraling out of control. What awaited them at the end of this alley? Would they stumble onto salvation or into a snare even worse than the last? "Here." Ella pointed to a rusty gate, barely visible in the dark. It shone faintly as if begging for them to approach. "We can hide." Russell rushed toward it, hands trembling as he tried to pull the gate open. The metal groaned but didn't yield. Panic settled in his chest like a stone. "Come on," he grunted, shoving harder, desperation clawing at him. He could feel the hunters closing in, their shouts drawing nearer. "Russell!" Ella's voice froze his movement. She was pale, eyes wide with fear, staring beyond him. The hunters had rounded the corner, the beams of their flashlights sweeping over the ground like predatory eyes. "Now," she urged, and he finally managed to wrench the gate open. They slipped through just as the light hit them like a spotlight, illuminating their escape. Inside the enclosed space, darkness enveloped them. Musty air filled their lungs as they tumbled to the ground, panting. But just as they tried to collect their thoughts, the sound of shuffling footsteps echoed ominously nearby. "Ella, what is this place?" Russell whispered, his voice barely escaping the tightening grip of fear. "I don't know," she admitted, scanning the shadows around them. "But we have to hope it's safe." Before they could catch their breath, they heard voices filtering through the alley, muffled but unmistakably intense. "They can't have gone far. Search everywhere." Russell felt the walls closing in, suffocating him with questions. What secrets hid in the darkness around them? Who were the hunters really, and could they withstand whatever storm was brewing just outside the gate? His heart raced. "Ella, we need to keep moving." Before he could finish, the ground beneath them rattled as a low rumble reverberated through the air. The darkness shifted, awakening something unspoken, something they were utterly unprepared for. In that fleeting moment, they both realized, whatever awaited them in this shadowed place was far more dangerous than the hunters outside. Would they uncover the truth lurking in the depths? Or would it drag them down into a nightmare from which there was no escape? Russell's breath hitched as the rumble deepened, an ominous growl reverberating through the narrow corridor. He instinctively grabbed Ella's arm, pulling her closer. "What was that?" "I don't know," she hissed, her wide eyes scanning the dark corners around them. Fear painted her features a shade paler. "But we can't stay here." The footsteps outside continued to draw nearer, a cacophony of voices blending into a grim concert. "They must be close. Keep looking." The hunters were relentless. Panic surged through Russell again, but there was no time to give in to it. "Let us move," Ella said, urgency lacing her voice. She took the lead, urging him forward. They stumbled deeper into the dark, the air growing heavy and stale as they navigated the tight space. The shadows felt almost alive, whispering secrets of past lives lost in the void. Russell could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears, mixing with the distant echoes of the hunters. Each step felt like a mile, stretching their fears thin. Then, a moment of reprieve. They stumbled upon a dimly lit room at the end of the corridor. It was a stark contrast to the oppressive darkness they had just traversed. Russell peered inside cautiously. The sight made his stomach twist. There were remnants of an old office, dusty papers scattered across a torn carpet, a broken desk littered with forgotten artifacts. A single flickering bulb swung overhead, casting long shadows that throbbed with ominous intent. Look, Ella pointed to a box tucked beneath the desk. It was the same kind of box they had seen earlier, wooden and stained, marked with strange symbols. That's it. No, 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 Russell muttered, dread creeping back into his bones. Ella, remember what they said? That box isn't safe. She stepped closer, compulsion evident in her eyes. But it might have what we need, Russell. We can't ignore it. The urgency in her tone sent a shiver down his spine. He wanted to argue, but deep down he felt the pull too. The box was a gravity well of secrets, and they were on the brink of something monumental. Whether it was salvation or ruin, he didn't know. Can you hear that? Russell whispered suddenly. They halted, ears straining to discern the soft, drumming sound that seemed to echo from within the box itself. What do you mean? Ella frowned, shifting closer to the sound. It's like it's alive, he breathed, barely able to contain the rising dread. What if it's calling to us? But before they could make a decision, another tremor rattled through the walls, stronger this time. It was followed by a boom like thunder crashing from beneath. The ceiling sagged above them, dust raining down. Get back! Russell barked, yanking Ella away from the desk just as part of a ceiling tile crashed to the ground where she had just stood. Why aren't they coming for us? Ella's voice trembled, fear breaking through her bravado. They should have found us already. Russell's heart raced as he stared back at the chaotic scene unfolding in the room. They're waiting for something, maybe for us to open that box. In that moment realization dawned. They were merely pawns in a twisted game. The hunters were not just searching for them. They wanted whatever lay hidden within that box. Would it amplify their power or become the very trap they needed to avoid? Russell's mind raced with the implications. What are we willing to risk, Ella? Is the truth worth it if it could mean our end? Suddenly, the door of their makeshift hiding spot swung open with a sharp creak. Light flooded in, illuminating a figure, a shadowy silhouette filled with malice. Found you there, breath hitched as the face came into view, recognition dawning with horror. Would this be the final moment of their desperate escape, or merely the start of a more horrifying chapter? Now there's no turning back. The figure in the doorway stepped forward, revealing a face that sent a chill down Russell's spine. It was the last person he expected to see, Benny, the notorious dealer who had vanished from their lives, leaving chaos in his wake. His eyes sparked with a dark amusement as he took in the scene, clearly enjoying their terror. Well, what do we have here? Benny's voice dripped with mock concern, but Russell held on to Ella, ready to fight off the rush of dread. Is this the part where I lecture you on the dangers of poking around in places you don't belong? Ella tightened her grip on Russell's arm, her breath quickening. What do you want, Benny? She spat, her voice edged with defiance. We aren't afraid of you. Not afraid. Benny laughed, a sinister rumble that echoed through the room. He sidled closer, his hands tucked into the pockets of his filthy coat, the flickering light casting unsettling shadows on his face. You should be. The hunters are only interested in their prize, but the two of you? He leaned closer, narrowing his eyes. You're just the bait. A distraction, Russell muttered, realization hitting home. The hunters weren't just after them. They wanted whatever was inside that box, and he and Ella were merely pawns to lure them in. Panic clawed at his throat. Benny gestured flamboyantly towards the box, a devilish grin spreading across his lips. You really think it's safe to open that? You're better off letting it remain a mystery. Trust me, the truth has a way of biting back. As those words hung in the air, the drumming inside the box intensified, sounding almost like a heartbeat, rhythmic and alive. It was as if it responded to Benny's taunts, challenging them to act. Russell, we have to, Ella began, but before she could finish, a loud crash erupted from the corridor behind Benny. Too late, he yelled, diving into the room just as a group of hunters poured through the door, menacing figures cloaked in darkness. The back and forth of the light danced around them, illuminating cold eyes and weapons glinting with malice. The hunters surged forward, their collective intent moving like a tidal wave. Get the box. Stop them. One shouted, and suddenly the race against time had escalated to life and death. Run! Russell barked, gripping Ella's hand tightly. They ducked beneath arms and legs, pushing through the chaos while the air became thick with tension. They rushed away from Benny, whose laughter carried like a siren song behind them. You think you can escape? The box will determine your fate, whether you like it or not. The hunters shouted after them, their voices an amalgamation of growls and commands, every step pounding in Russell's chest as he and Ella darted through the maze of the abandoned building. Their breaths came quick, desperation fueling their flight as they searched for a way out. Every corner they turned seemed to bring them closer to the hunters, the gnawing sound of boots pounding on the floor echoing in their ears. Where now? Ella gasped, panic flooding her voice again. A dead end loomed ahead, and Russell's heart raced with dread. They had to think fast. Over there. He pointed wildly to a small window, barely accessible but wide enough for them to squeeze through. If we can just make it there before they could take a single step. The main hunter burst into view, a tall figure with a shadowed face. He raised a weapon, his sneer unmistakable. You won to escape this time. In that moment everything hung in the balance. Would they jump or freeze? Their escape teetered on the edge of oblivion. Just then the ground quaked beneath them again, responding with ferocity. It was as if the entire building held its breath, a sigh of anticipation filling the air. Ella! Now! As they hesitated for a split-second, fear sliding through their veins, would the truth be their savior or their doom? Would the box take away their chance to escape? And for the first time Russell asked himself what would happen if they failed. A blinding light exploded from within the box as they turned to face it, caught between survival and the haunting allure of what lay hidden inside. What unleashed power would reveal itself? The light burst forth like a star exploding in the last moment of a dying universe. Russell felt his entire world shift. The fierce brightness swallowed the darkness, illuminating every crevice, every frightened face around him. He squinted against the glare, heart racing, mind spinning. The hunters froze momentarily, their expressions shifting from determination to shock. What the hell? One of them shouted, eyes darting around in disbelief. Get back! Benny yelled, panic lacing his voice as he staggered backward, hands held up in an instinctive gesture of surrender. The room pulsed, alive with energy as the contents of the box began to lift into the air. The photographs, the papers, even the box itself floated like fallen leaves caught in an unexpected breeze. Russell's heart raced. It felt as if the old stories he'd heard of hidden treasures were coming to life. Russell! Ella called out, her voice snapping him back to focus. We need to take advantage of this. Now! Without thinking, he grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the window, leaping through without hesitation just as the aura around the box burst, sending fragments of shadow flying in all directions. The force knocked the hunters off balance, giving them precious seconds to escape into the cold night. They landed outside, breathless and disoriented. Russell felt the rain battering against him, but it felt invigorating, washing away a layer of fear. They bolted down the alley, past rows of abandoned buildings, the sound of chaos echoing behind them. Where do we go? He panted, glancing back. Anywhere but here. Ella urged, urgency fueling her every word. We need to head to the docks. There's a boat that might take us to safety. As they made their way, the murmurs of doubt crept back. What did we unleash? Will it just bring more trouble? Ella's grip on his arm tightened. We have to embrace it, Russell. It's part of our story now, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos swirling around them. Whatever it was the key to the truth we need. The docks loomed closer, the salty air bracing and sharp. As they turned a corner, Russell spotted a small boat bobbing on the water, its owner dozing beneath a canvas tarp. They sprinted toward it, but a shadow flickered in the corner of his eye. One of the hunters had recovered and was hot on their trail, and there was no time to waste. Hey! Wake up! Ella shouted at the boat owner, desperation in her eyes. The man stirred, startled awake, but there was no time for pleasantries. Get us out of here! Russell yelled, practically dragging Ella onto the boat while the dock creaked dangerously beneath their feet. What? Are you insane? The boat owner exclaimed, but the urgency in their eyes communicated everything he needed to know. The hunter appeared behind them, rushing forward, eyes wild with fury. Just before he could leap onto the boat, the owner hit the throttle, and they shot away into the night, the darkness swallowing their wake. Feeling the rush of wind against his skin, Russell's heart finally started to ease. They had escaped. For now. But the questions tugging at his mind remained. What now? He asked, his voice trembling slightly. Ella turned to him, determination set in her eyes. Now we figure out what we unleashed and why. That was more than just a box, it was a gateway. Her words wrapped around him like a promise. Together, they stared out at the vast waters that reflected the scattered stars above, each one a whisper of hope. They weren't just fleeing. They were on the brink of discovering something monumental, a truth that could alter their lives forever. The night had changed them, and while shadows still lurked in their past, they would face whatever lay ahead as allies, fighting against doubt and destiny together. As the boat cruised further into the open water, Russell felt a sense of resolve rise within him. They would confront this chaos and unleash the strength that had always burned beneath the surface. That box hadn't just been a trap, it was their beacon. The sky began to celebrate the dawn, the horizon slowly painting itself in hues of lavender and gold. Onward, Russell whispered, the word carrying the weight of unspoken promises. That single word anchored them against the rising tide. Whatever truth awaited them, they would face it hand in hand, heart to heart. There was no turning back now, and for the first time, as the sun broke over the skyline, Russell smiled, feeling lighter than he had in years. It was time to reclaim his life. Now he knew that he was more than just a millionaire with a target on his back. He was ready to uncover every secret, challenge every demon, and build a future worth fighting for together. Subscribe immediately so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this thrilling conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this epic conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.